Facing insurmountable odds, Vietnam veteran John Rambo has seconds left to make a bold decision. He and his audience know what he has to do. An act of heart-pounding daring. The history of movies is overflowing with moments of amazing action scenes. Moments where stunt performers, whether to elicit a gasp or a laugh, have often risked life and limb to thrill us. Hi, I'm Christopher Reeves. Cannon rolls, high falls, bulldogging, full burns. Now, these exotic-sounding terms are part of the everyday language of stunt people, that elite group of men and women whose breathtaking achievements we're celebrating. Every stunt is a new challenge to their skill and their imagination. In this program, we're going to explore with them and some of the stars they work with this extraordinary way of making a living. We're meant to believe what we're seeing. These exciting seconds of stunning action are indeed convincing. But of course, no one was actually injured during any of those scenes. Experienced stunt people, athletes with no desire to harm themselves, created those hair-raising moments. While these professionals only number in the hundreds, they perform thousands of amazing stunts every year. And modern safety techniques have greatly reduced the risk of injury, but stunt work is still extremely dangerous. Their job holds a fascination for all of us, although very few of us can really understand fully how it's done. Perhaps Michael Douglas came closer in his dual role as producer and actor.
What I soon learned, being my first production with a lot of action, a la a mudslide or swinging across a chasm, can look great on the page. One never has any idea of the complexities and the realities of getting them done.
Preparing for a new role, Michael recalls,
ultimately, a large part of the success of Romancing the Stone was a result of the action sequences that we had in that picture. And those, in turn, we have to thank a guy named Terry Leonard.
20 years ago, a big outdoor action film, A Man Called Horse. The enemy chief, Striking Bear, is played by Terry Leonard, a college football player who'd begun in movies as an extra. But he was soon spotted by veteran stuntmen as having the drive, coordination, and grit to make it as one of them. A superior horseman, Terry is also a modern stuntman who can't afford to specialize. Versatility is both the key to survival and, in his case, exceptional success. To come up with a new stunt or gag like this one in Blue Thunder requires a grasp of mechanics and physics, among other things. Terry obviously is a master of them all. In The Wind and the Lion, starring Miss Bergen, Terry would coordinate all the stunts as well as perform the toughest ones.
We didn't hurt a horse. The risk of personal injury is great. I'm what they call an adrenaline junkie. And I get my kicks out of just performing a challenging piece of work. I don't need publicity for it. I don't need to be on screen. And 99% of most stuntmen feel that way. You get your acceptance from your peers.
In one of the most realistic war films ever made, the dangerous stunts in Apocalypse Now were seldom highlighted, but they were there.
It was a hell of an experience. It was a classic. I'll never work on another film of that magnitude again, I don't think, as long as I'm in the business. It was kind of like working on Gone with the Wind. We had 9 cameras going a lot of times. We had a lot of multiple camera setups. Amazingly, on Apocalypse, nobody got hurt.
I want my men out.
In a scene where a female Viet Cong tosses a bomb in a helicopter just lifting off, weeks of preparation went into assuring that the explosions would work in one take. And the soldier blown out of the craft had to be on fire as well. Terry's stunt was seen for an instant in a long shot. Replaying the scene, you have to look closely to see this detail of the overall horror of war. Brief and distant though it is, Terry regards the stunt as one of his finest.
10, 12, 15 times a year when you're a working stuntman probably is the only amount of time that you're really, what I call staring the Grim Reaper in the face, where you're doing something that's really essentially dangerous from the onset.
In the 1981 Legend of the Lone Ranger, Terry tries to duplicate a stunt done only once before, in 1938, by his mentor, Yakima Canutt. Perfect timing and terrific strength are required, both of which Terry possesses. But something can always go wrong, and did.
The rear wheels of the coach ran over both my legs and damaged my left knee pretty bad. Put a big dent in my calf on the right leg, and fortunately I came out legs first, not head first.
Also, Michael's double for the imminent stunt.
I couldn't believe the size of this thing, and the water was pouring down. And Terry was sort of whimsical looking at that because he'd done a lot of Westerns. He was the one that turned us on to this waterfall. And Durango was an area where we did a lot of Westerns, and he said, you know, I always want to take a horse off that fall. I just looked at this man like, sure, I can understand that, Terry. And so I think it was out of the challenge of never having had a chance to take a horse off that fall, which I think was about 90. It's about 90 feet. So we had questions, but again, you always are in the hands of the experts.
But there could only be, it looks great in the movie. And his partner behind him, Vince Dedrick Jr., doubling Kathleen Turner, had no problem. But Terry's movement was restricted by the unexpected downdraft, which kept him perilously close to the car and trapped by the waterfall.
I didn't have any air. I couldn't get up. I was down about 7, 8 feet with the pressure of the water holding me under the hydraulic action of the falls, and I couldn't get out. So the good Lord's the only person that knows why he chose to get me that last gulp of air, and that's what saved me. But it was a pretty close call.
A good stuntman really knows how to make a stunt pay off. And they really, and Terry Leonard was a guy, and is renowned as a guy who can really create great stunts, I mean, memorable stunts.
In 1958, Terry's mentor, Yakima Canutt, would be entrusted with supervising the main action in Ben-Hur, a remake of the silent epic in which more than 100 horses and a number of men died while shooting the colossal chariot race. He had no intention of letting history repeat itself. 6 months preparation and 3 months filming were scheduled for the 8-minute sequence, the capstone of Yakima's career. He'd been a premier stuntman for decades, earning his reputation by engineering and safely completing impossible pieces of action, such as this classic in Stagecoach, which even the brilliant Terry Leonard couldn't repeat. Now, 30 years later, as second unit director, he'd not only have to stage each complex stunt, but determine exactly how much he could allow the 2 stars to do in the highly dangerous race.
It's always a lot less than some actors like to pretend. No actor can adequately do real stunt work, and is seldom allowed to try even. But the guys that know how to do it, that teach you learn the limits of your capacity, and you learn to trust them.
However, just before actual filming was to begin, Chuck had second thoughts.
Then it crossed my mind one day when we were resting the horses, and I said, Jack, you know, I've just gotten to the point where I can drive these suckers. But I said, it's just the one team. I said, we start shooting this next week, and there are going to be 8 other teams out there. How about that? I'm not certain I can cut that. And he said, Chuck, you just stay in the chariot. I guarantee you're going to win the damn race. But that was probably the most successful physical presentation I've ever learned. It was one of the most exciting periods of my life. Stuntmen are marvelous guys. They have an easy kind of confidence. They don't have to prove anything, because they can do it. If everybody in movies could do what he does as well as the stuntmen do what they do, we would have films you couldn't believe. But the rest of us are struggling with creative and mental and physical inadequacies that don't seem to affect these guys.
Not before and not since 1966 has a special Oscar been bestowed upon a stuntman. And Yakima Canuck was that man. Of all the silent screen stars, Buster Keaton, a trained acrobat, was perhaps best prepared to do his own stunt work. His keen timing and coordination undoubtedly accounted for much of his popularity. Today, Buster wouldn't have been allowed to do half of what he did then. If the star is injured and the production is halted, insurance companies usually cover the costly downtime. Nobody wants that to happen. But today, a lot of action stars have to do some pretty difficult stunts themselves to satisfy the demands of a sophisticated audience. And as a result, actors and stunt people develop much closer relationships than in the past. In the film The Presidio, Sean Connery and Mark Harmon play 2 lawmen in a story that calls for them to do a lot more than just deliver dialogue. Mark's experience as a college quarterback came in very handy when negotiating this realistic chase scene. And clearly, he's doing everything himself. Shot mainly on actual locations, the film is both directed and photographed by Peter Hyams, who relies heavily on veteran stunt coordinator Glenn Wilder to help bring originality to the sequence. In turn, Mark and his stunt double Norman Howell work on who can best sell a shot.
I've worked with Norman for quite a while, and I trust his judgment implicitly. If he tells me he thinks it's difficult and he should handle it alone, I let him handle it alone. And most times he'll do it, and then I'll do it, and hopefully that gives the editor an advantage that he might not have in other instances. And I don't care about any of it as long as the scene wins. I'm no hero about the stunt part of it, and I'll do whatever I need to do to make it believable for the character, but Norman Howell looks more like me than I look like me, so I let him do the really hard stuff.
Roll both cameras. And be calm and mark. Action, guys.
With fellow stuntman Steve Kelso doubling the heavy, Norman replaces Mark for this brief but risky piece of action.
Roll camera, please. Ready?
Mark then comes in to do the close shot, which still demands exceptional agility and acting ability. At 12, Norman Howell was given a part in a John Wayne Western, was immediately drawn to the easygoing nature of the stuntmen, and decided he had to become one of them.
And I just started picking up information from all these older stunt guys, Tommy Huff, Terry Leonard. I just started listening. For 10 years, I never talked. I listened, you know. Through meeting Billy Burton, I did a job called Octopus, where I doubled James Bond, which was, to me, you know, a highlight. That was difficult to train for because there was an airplane taxiing down the runway, and I had to ride up behind it on a horse and leap ahead of my horse and land on the tail of the Beechcraft.
Norman was 25 years old at the time he literally boarded and held on to the aircraft as it lifted off the ground. For the balance of this unique sequence, however, Roger Moore would be doubled by aerial specialist Jake Lombard. It would require 4 weeks filming at 7,000 to 8,000 feet to get James Bond out of this ultimate cliffhanger predicament. The stunt had never been done before, and while there's a parachute under Jake's jacket, there were many risks entailed by moving about the speeding plane.
As we're diving, the wardrobe exploded and inflated with air. And I didn't want to take a chance on deploying the parachute into the torn wardrobe, so I just hung on until it was all over. Of course, then you got to go do it again because the coat looked terrible in camera.
During the fight sequence, Jake engages B.J. Worth, doubling Heavy, in an authentic duel which was all the more dangerous for having two men performing miles high at 120 miles an hour. B.J. vividly recalls his challenge.
In my position, I had to have my back to the wind. And that was the most difficult part, to the most trying, because sometimes I'd come very near the tail, and we had to do it 18 times, I guess, from different angles, different cameras, and in the end it worked out okay, but it was sort of tricky.
Needless to say, the Bond pictures have brought stunt work to new heights. In Dodge City, a 1939 Western, the classic barroom brawl, a field day for Hollywood stuntmen for whom these huge free-for-alls meant a lot of work. Noticeably absent amongst the chaos is the star Errol Flynn. An unrehearsed punch or flying object might have done him in.
Stop it, you fool! Stop it, I said!
The times have changed. For the film Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze plays a professional bouncer with a talent for kickboxing. Long, complex fight scenes will require his complete participation. No double at all most of the time. Choreographing the action for the many elaborate brawls is Charlie Picerni, outstanding stunt coordinator of such films as Die Hard. No one throws a punch without his staging it first, both to ensure it's true to the film and safe.
Right? And when Sam pushes Tony back,
He suggests to director Rowdy Harrington what co-star Sam Elliott should do next.
You got that, but you're going to turn back into it. You can get this if you want, but...
The old fights are still entertaining. What we try to do now is try and put different types of fights in movies. I think fights that fit the characters, you know, more than just doing a fight for the sake of doing a fight. I think it's always interesting to make it fit the character and make the story work.
I love these guys. Half my friends are stuntmen. And it's interesting, and they're a real interesting lot because, you know, it's a macho trade, you know, yet 9 times out of 10, they don't play macho. They don't try to act like I'm the baddest of the bad. They're good people, and they're in touch with their vulnerability and their sensitivity. Charlie, he doesn't just go by the numbers and just stick in stuff. He goes from a dynamic and emotional point of view of what emotionally needs to happen in this moment for the movie, not just so he can throw in neat stunts. And to me, that makes a powerful stunt coordinator.
That works much better.
He's a lot of fun. He's up. I think the positive energy that he pumps into it is full of energy. You know, I mean, he's non-stop all the time. And that's real infectious, that kind of energy. And the other thing I'd say about Charlie is he's not going to settle for anything. And that, too, is what puts him on top of it, I think. The fact that he doesn't compromise his shots.
Good.
In the business, Charlie and other leading colleagues are noted for their personal commitment to each film. A case in point occurred in First Blood, the first Rambo film. Stuntman Benny Dobbins is driving the police car chasing Sylvester Stallone. A high-speed ramp jump is called for. But the car lands with unexpected impact, and Benny's back is broken. Yet he completes the scene and returns to work 6 months later. Benny continues working as a foremost stunt coordinator, and along the way becomes mentor to a new superstar.
I met Benny Dobbins around 3 months before we filmed the film Commando. We met at lunch, and he explained to me how he works. And he told me that he believes very strongly in the stars doing most of their own stunts. But he said that's not very easy, obviously. He says, for that you have to be willing to go under some severe training. And I say, uh-oh, one of those things, right? And he said, listen, I'm going to give you the best trainer for fight scenes, so you can do high kicks up to faces, no matter how tall the guys are. I give you guys to teach you how to jump off buildings and do all in the airbag. So to me, Benny Dobbins was a very, very important person in my career, because he enlightened me to all these things about stunts and about courage when you do stunts and training for it. You look at it and you say, wait a minute, you want me to do this? You want me to jump up an elevator, you know, 20 feet down into this airbag? Wait a minute, yeah. But the way he did it was in a very casual way, and he jumped, and he said, it's a piece of cake, try it, come on. And I remember one stunt we did on Commando where I had to kind of run through a French door. I never got hurt with Benny Dobbins coordinating the film. They were dangerous stunts, but I never got hurt. And I think if it wouldn't have been for Benny, I wouldn't have been making movies today, because I would have broken many bones by now.
Red Heat would be their last picture together. The film is dedicated to Benny.
Because he died on a film while he was working. He died during a scene where we were out in the snow, freezing cold during the fight sequence. And he literally died putting wooden boards out there in the snow so we don't have to freeze our ass off with our feet in the snow. While he was doing that work, you know, he passed out, and then he never came back. You had to admire the whole Benny Dobbins, which is also the way he talked about his family, the way he loved his wife, the way he loved his children, that usually you don't see much in this town. People talk about, you know, me, 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 me. But no one talks about those things that everyone else out there in the country talks about: family, love, affection, loyalty, and things like that. So he will always be like kind of a teacher to us in those areas too. But whenever I think of Benny, I think of a mentor. I think of him as a friend and a guy that assisted me not only with stunts, but with everything in life. And now he's a great loss.
Today's action stars depend on stuntmen not just for the high-risk shots. For a convincing, lasting image as a heroic figure, the actor must continually learn new physical moves which support his character. He knows who he can count on to help. The automobile. An invention, like the movies themselves, identified with America's fascination with speed and adventure. But it wouldn't be until 1968 and this revolutionary sequence in Bullet that the car chase took a cultural turn. The steel horsepower of the hero was now pitted against the villains, and the violent car chase became the staple of virtually every action film and television series. 20 years after Bullet, there seems to be no diminishing of the audience's craving for car duels, however fantastic. It's up to the stunt people working closely with engineers, mechanics, and special effects to figure out just how to make each variation on this theme different and hopefully more thrilling. Advanced safety techniques have been essential. And in a 1976 feature, Moving Violations, an insurance company would collaborate with the producer for the first human test of the airbag. Stuntman Vic Rivers hit a 16-ton concrete wall at 35 miles an hour. Stuntmen have devised more imaginative stunts with cars than they ever could with horses. And in The Electric Horseman, a first-of-a-kind gag is pulled off by Roger Creed on the bottom and Conrad Palmisano on the top. It might look simple, but it wasn't.
A good stunt person, to me, is somebody who is careful, not crazy, is calculated, people who don't panic.
Conrad Palmisano supervises the recreation of actual car races for the film Heart Like a Wheel. He's recruited the best stunt drivers and technicians for several high-speed accidents, which were part of Shirley Muldooney's record-setting career. Shirley is played by actress Bonnie Bedelia, who in turn will be doubled by stuntwoman Kerry Cullen for the film's most dangerous sequence.
She's probably doing between 110 and 120 miles an hour. She'll have to blow the car up while in it, bring it to a stop while the car is still engulfed. She has to then climb out of the car, and we do a full burn on her, actually paint her down with rubber cement and light her off as well.
Roll the cameras in. Please be on your toes. You know she won't be able to see very well.
There's no pictures worth injuring somebody or killing them over, so that has to take precedence above and beyond all.
Thank you.
All cameras, all cameras.
He's rolling. Roll all cameras.
Have its drawbacks, but for the most part, through all of that, enough of when you get up of atta boys or oh you poor baby, are you okay? This somehow makes it all worthwhile.
Kerry Cullen survived unscathed. But who's going to come to the aid of Kathleen Turner in Romancing the Stone? The lady couldn't be in more jeopardy. Mad dog killers behind her, a 400-foot gorge beneath her, and only a rotting, rickety bridge to support her. No need to worry, even her legs belong to one of the most experienced stuntwomen in the business.
This was a long ways up.
The daughter of a stuntman, Jeannie Epper began her career in her teens, but so far this picture's been its high point.
And it was challenging, fun, scary, it was everything. It was probably the most ultimate of all of my emotions that I have felt since I've been in the film industry. You know, all in one film.
Michael Douglas also clearly remembers.
It was a sequence that I think the audiences had a lot of fun with, but I know Jeannie Eppert's got a lot of black and blue marks to talk about it.
I'm telling you, this has turned out to be one hell of a morning.
I love it. I mean, come on, I'm in my 40s and I'm still doing it full time, making a living at it. Excitement. It's something that, I mean, how many women in the world do what I do for a living?
When a neighborhood boy gets stuck on a farm rooftop in the Tom Selleck feature Her Alibi, it's the heroine, not the hero, who comes to the rescue. Co-star Paulina Porizkova finds herself called upon to take charge of the risk-filled endeavor. With his friends, Tom looks on in awe at her incredible athletic grace and prowess. Although he's madly in love with her, all he knows about the mysterious Romanian is that he's her alibi for a murder. This light-hearted suspense sequence involves as much skill and preparation as stunt work in a big action film, and will demand a full week's shooting in the broiling heat and humidity of July in Maryland. But of course, the sweat mustn't show on camera. any more than the fact that Paulina couldn't actually do most of the wonderful things she just seemed to do. Chris Palomino, an accomplished gymnast and professional stunt woman for 2 years, has been brought in from California to double Paulina.
It's like no normal human being would actually do it. Thank you. You're inhuman.
Will then cut and do the shot with someone holding the...
For this sequence, director Bruce Beresford looks to Ronnie Rondell for the best, quickest, and safest way to bring off the rescue. A leading stunt coordinator and second unit director today, an outstanding stuntman since his teens, there's no aspect of the business he hasn't experienced firsthand.
Here, okay? Okay. All set?
Yeah, you got the...
Go.
Well, what happened, guys? She's on her way.
A stuntman's son, Ronnie's life has been devoted to the business. His son, Reed, had been making a name for himself as a top stuntman, too, when he fell victim to an ironic tragedy.
If it happens, it happens. The thing with losing our youngest son, Reed, it was after the shot. It had nothing to do with the stunts, and the helicopter crashed going back to the #1 position. But we take those chances. That's how we make a living.
Although most boys love to play around heights, Larry Nicholas explains why he's been stunt doubling the 7-year-old actor.
Children, you'd be surprised, they do get in a lot of trouble, and you know, they're minors and they don't want them doing none of the stuff, so they call us in, the smaller people, to do this. I was 24 when I got into the business, about 3 years ago.
And for about the same 3 years, Tom Selleck's been harboring a stunt-related frustration.
Well, there is one thing I'm waiting to do. I learned to do a Pony Express mount, which most coordinators are going to tell me don't do it, for High Road to China, and then they switched the location we were at. I had practiced every lunch this Pony Express mount, you know, where the horse runs by, I run over the horse, grab onto the corner of the saddle, and vault up and keep riding. And I was getting okay at it. I don't know how it looked after I got on the saddle, but I stayed in. And I thought that'd be great, you know, to actually do something like that on film. They changed the location, I never got to do it. So, I don't know, I have a Pony Express mount in my bag of tricks waiting, but I'm 43 now, and I don't know, it may not be the same. I probably weigh a little more. It's going to get harder to get up there, so it may just be in my own memory.
In comedy films, especially the creations of Blake Edwards, ranging from The Great Race to the Inspector Clouseau series, physical farce is a key element, with stuntmen working almost as much as the leads. When filming these gags, however, writer-director Edwards seldom enjoys his own work.
I always have a sense of apprehension. I always do. I always get very nervous. The adrenaline gets going, just like the stunt guy, maybe not as much. I sit there and I have no control over it at all, other than I cooked it up. You know, I perpetrated this thing, and he could damn well get hurt by it. So I live in, for a few moments, of great apprehension, fear, if you will.
To alleviate his anxiety, Blake puts the responsibility for all risky action in the hands of Joe Dunn, his stunt coordinator and second unit director for many years. For the film Skin Deep, an unusual situation. Its star, John Ritter, must deliver dialogue during an unexpected calamity. That means John has to do the stunt himself. So, weeks before filming, Joe does tests with stuntman Jerry Spicer to determine just how big the surprise tidal wave can be without endangering the star. It's concluded that about 300 gallons of water ought to do it.
You won't believe it. There is a God, and he's a gagger.
Okay. Joe Dunn had the rare opportunity of doubling the late Peter Sellers in his last 5 Clouseau films.
when you're doubling for someone in a comedy, you should really try and look like them physically, because comedy, you've got to take their little mannerisms and you've got to put that in, otherwise the stunt means nothing. Doubling for someone like Peter Sellers, who's a very funny man and walks funny and was in all different disguises, you had to try and get into his part as well. That's the most difficult part, I think.
In one film, a swimming pool had been filled with tons of Jell-O to get the desired effect. A first for all concerned.
I was getting interviewed by some English paper, and they said to me, you know, what's going to happen? I said, well, the guy's going to dive into this pool of Jell-O. And they said, well, how'd you do that? I mean, as though I was an expert on diving into Jell-O, and nobody had ever done this, you know. And I said, well, I said, you just dive off the board and you hit the Jell-O and you come to a dead stop. He said, but how are you going to get him out? I said, well, he'll eat his way to the shallow end. And he's right in this town. He thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's real beach water.
2.5 to 3 seconds total. It's John.
It's 2.5.
The camera's ready, and the star, perhaps a bit apprehensive, set to deliver his line. But it's left to Joe to signal the all-important when.
And roll it.
Set.
Set.
Set. Shake! You won't believe it, but there is a God, and he's a gag writer.
You're okay.
Yeah, just knock the wind out of me. That's
yeah.
In the action epic The Road Warrior, the legacy of Hollywood stuntmen to their talented Australian counterparts is quite evident. According to the film star Mel Gibson, they're alike in most ways.
I like to hang around the stunt guys on films, actually, because they're particularly, they're aware of watching each other's backs a lot, because a lot depends, you know, they bond. They don't even have to like one another, but they have to, in a way, show a kind of love and care for the safety and well-being of one another. You can recognize in someone, no matter what field they're in, if they're good at what they do, they seem to have a kind of a love for it and an enjoyment. They're glowing while they're doing it.
It's one thing to have the spirit and the courage and the athletic skills to be a stuntman, and it's quite another thing to have a long and successful career at it. The competition is stiff, jobs are sometimes scarce. One of the best-known names in the business is Hal Needham. Controversial in some quarters for his aggressiveness in forcing greater respect for stuntmen on the industry, at 57, he's met countless challenges with a rare individuality. Now chairman of a camera car company and a leading film director, 30 years ago, out of work and willing to try anything for a break.
I always felt that if I ever wanted to make any big money, that I was going to have to do something that would put my life on the line, for the simple reason that I didn't have an education, and I was trying to make money and build a reputation.
In the television series You Asked For It, he finally caught the attention of the stunt community.
First of all, just jump out of an airplane 18 feet in the air going 57 miles an hour is not too bad. But then to time it so I can hit that guy, because the horse is only running 30. If I hit that horse too hard, running that fast, there's going to be 3 of us in a big heap out there. That was tough. I mean, that took perfect timing, a great deal of agility, even though when I finally did it, I dug my head in the ground. I looked like an ostrich trying to hide, but I thought I was lucky just to come out of it at all. There's an excitement about it to risk your life. I mean, or even risk harm to yourself, breaking a bone or any kind of danger. There's a certain excitement to it. I mean, when I joined the military, why did I join the paratroopers? I could have stayed in the infantry and been just as well off. I thought it'd be exciting.
By 1977, Hal had directed his first film, Smokey and the Bandit. Its huge box office success meant he could write his own ticket. Called Hooper, his second film entertainingly told the tale of an aging stuntman. Some colleagues were critical of the dramatic license it took, but the public loved it.
Action! Go! Go! Go!
Now, as director, Al would rely heavily on his stunt coordinator, Bobby Bass, to put this wild, hazard-filled sequence on film.
I had a very complex situation in there, man. I had 14 cameras running at one time. 2 city blocks on fire. I had stuntmen turning over cars. And we did it in one take with 14 cameras. That's the kind of stuff you like to do, because, boy, when you get through with that, you said, ah, I nailed it. You know, that's the good stuff.
I'll have these 2 cars come across.
This is Alan Gibbs. At 47, he's known as one of the handful of stuntmen who can do it all.
And you'll get to see it all. You know what I'm saying? If we get so wide that you...
Trained as a young man by Hal Needham, he's now stunt coordinating the action for Shakedown, a cop thriller being shot on New York locations, most of them as difficult as this one on Times Square. His status as a master of car stunts was confirmed with this record jump in Smokey and the Bandit, a record still unbroken in film. For 15 years, Alan doubled Jack Nicholson in virtually all his action scenes. In this delightfully mad but risky scene from Terms of Endearment, Alan doubles Jack with Jeannie Epper sitting in for Shirley MacLaine. In The Witches of Eastwick, Alan designed this visually original stunt and naturally did the hard part for Jack.
Yeah, just so he's coming in, we bring that up.
Also known for his generous treatment of young stunt people, Alan had brought on Jack Gill to coordinate Shakedown. 2 weeks into filming, Alan fell ill and was rushed back to Los Angeles. The diagnosis, cancer.
I'll come in at maybe 15. When Alan was back there in L.A., I kept trying to call him while he was getting all the tests done. And we stayed on the phone a lot, back and forth. And he said, I want you to hold the cannon roll for me, because I still want to do the cannon roll. And I said, Alan, if you can get back to New York, you got the cannon roll. I'll put you in it in a second, and we'll have all the safety guys here for you. It kept us going throughout the whole picture, and we had another 3 months to shoot on this thing, and it had a lot of major stunts to do. So every time we did something major, we all started thinking about Alan, because if Alan's got the guts to come out and try and do this cannon roll, we even think about it in the condition he was in. It, you know, we said, look, we can try a little bit harder on this one. It's not that big a deal.
Alan wouldn't return to do the cannon roll. He died soon after the film was finished. Jack Gill did it himself, triggering 3 sticks of dynamite to produce the biggest, most dramatic role he'd ever done. Elaborate safety precautions, taught him by Alan, had all proved out. His friends recall the profound impression he made on them.
I always looked up to him, and I want to be like Alan.
Alan was one of the most brilliant stuntmen to ever come into this business.
Alan was a good stuntman. He could do it all. He could do it all.
Next to the headache ball.
Great stunts and the stunt people who perform them. We've only scratched the surface of their wonderful work which will never cease to amaze and entertain. Well, are stunt people crazy? Are they always flirting with death? Well, the truth is, statistically, there are other occupations that are more hazardous, such as firefighting and heavy construction, even trucking. The point is, stunt people consciously choose to live on the edge. Maybe that's what makes them different. Jack Gill makes a good living being blown 80 feet off a cliff at night. He's also a happy family man with 2 children and an understanding wife, Morgan Brittany, who best sums up these unique individuals.
On our honeymoon,
He runs over to the window of the 30-story hotel room, and he looks out the window and he goes, "This would make a great high fall. I could land right about there." That's what being married to a stuntman is like. Every time they go up in a building, they figure out how to get out of the building without using the elevator.
Oh, excuse me.